Hello there.
Hello! Happy Wednesday.
My God, it is Wednesday.
I know. And it's also already middle August.
And kids are going back to school.
I know! Hence our topic today, but I know it's the days, the years, the hours, and the minutes, and the time is flying by.
Where did the year go?
I personally think there's some manipulation of time going on right now, but that might be more of a spiritual thing. But
It feels like it. So, hey, everybody. I am Michelle Barone, Moksha Grace Coaching, and I'm joined by.
Hi, everybody. My name is Krista Barone with Waking Wisdom Consulting. I am a fractional COO and operations consultant, helping business owners run their business and take it to new levels of amazingness and
I like
excellence. Yeah.
excellence.
And what kind of coach are you, Michelle? You just said Moksha Grace Coaching, but what kind of coaching is that?
Funny enough, to go along with the title today, emotional liberation, which also is emotional resilience. How to maintain your emotions, your inner family of voices, that I always like to say, so that they don't wreak havoc in your life, and that you can control situations better and have a more calm, relaxed reality.
Well, I gotta tell you sound like an absolute pro for this topic, and as someone who was bullied as a kid, I think I'm a pro on half the topic. So I think that we are going to be set up to have a really great conversation today as soon as I get the smush off my glasses. And
Yeah, I would agree. Go ahead.
I was
No,
just
I was going to say I
anyone that's
agree.
listening that knows any parents or just people who could, use the conversation or need to listen to the conversation that we're going to have today, tag them, share this out, and also comment along with us. We love to see your comments and see you engaging with us, giving your thoughts and opinions. And just as a disclaimer, as always, these are our, thoughts, opinions. We may even work through things by talking through things on the show. So take everything with a grain of salt. Take what you like, leave the rest. And maybe you don't like it, but you take it anyway because it makes sense to you. That's cool too. But yeah, today's going to be an interesting topic because, like we said, it's mid-August. At least in Florida, kids just went back to school this week. I think in some of the northern states they already did. But it really is the perfect time to talk about this concept of bullying because it is so, I think, so prevalent just in different ways in schools. And yet we also have this weird other side, this the opposite of bullying that's happening that's also problematic. So I know we were just saying how we were both pretty excited for this conversation today. Do you have a specific place you want to start?
Well, the first thing I want to absolutely say is we need to start with the kids, and getting them more emotional resilient, because kids are not the only ones that are bullied. It
Right.
does go into adulthood and being, when you have a toxic boss and you are in a narcissistic relationship, there is bullying that's going on. And so this isn't just for the kids. This is for all of us.
Yeah, I completely agree. And what better, if this conversation can help put in help give somebody a perspective on this that potentially could change their kids' lives because so much does start in childhood. And those people that grow up to be toxic bosses and bullying coworkers and just all around kind of negative people, typically that stems from something in childhood that either wasn't resolved, or there was some issue there, or they were never checked for their behavior. They never experienced anything sort of given back to them because of their poor behavior, and that then just continues on in their life because they find out, oh hey, if I bully this person, I get what I want, so I'm just going to continue that into my daily life. Not necessarily something that they consciously think of, but it's the same thing as we learn when our tummy hurts, it means we're hungry, and when we eat we feel better. It's the same sort of kind of subconscious programming that can happen.
Right.
So what's your initial thoughts on this, I guess?
Well, two housekeeping. One, definitely like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook. Definitely do that so you get notified when we go live. And Renee, thank you for sharing us out. And please, Renee, definitely chime in this conversation because you do work with kids, and
Oh,
this, I
fantastic.
know this is a very important topic for you, and how you help the kids out. And not everybody has adult professionals, teachers in their lives that care as much. And I happen to know Renee, and I know what she carries home with her at the end of the day and what she does for the kids that she impacts, and she does have a major impact on them, and we should only hope that more adults stand up for the kids. But I think it also is our responsibility, radical responsibility, to maintain our own emotional resilience and be the example, the inspiration for the kids, and teach our own kids
Yeah.
what does that mean, what does that look like. um, and so I think that that's so important, the radical responsibility for oneself.
Hmm.
And
I
I
mean, because
think,
that's what we're talking about essentially.
right,
Stop worrying about everyone else means just worry about yourself. Take
yeah,
responsibility, radical responsibility for yourself and your own emotions.
right, right. And realize that when someone does act out, that it has nothing to do with you. It feels
Hmm.
like it has everything to do with you, but it's their insecurities. It's the way they were raised. It's something that they went through, not to excuse them or give them an excuse or uh,
A bailout.
yeah, I'm trying to think of the word. It's the opposite of compromise. Accommodate. We're not accommodating the bully and making it a safe place for them. We need to make it a safe place for ourselves, because we're not allowing their words to hurt us. It's like back in when in elementary school, there was circle circle dot dot. Now you got your cootie shot, and it like protected you from other people. Or what was the other one? I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. These are all like things that we learned as kids, and honestly, I think that we were more emotionally resilient back then, because those are the things that our parents taught us.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, even still my generation, millennials, it's so funny to me because a lot of people think that millennials are so sensitive, but I would argue the complete opposite. I think that's very much the next generation and on, because my
mhm,
generation was the one where like bullying was absolutely rampant. Yes, 100% very true. And also things were not really being done about them. So we kind of had to figure out our own way through it. Where the next generation is where, and the generations since then have been really focused on, making sure no one says anything mean to anybody else. And there's been so many regulations set up for these upcoming generations that, looking around in society, the opposite of what we wanted has happened. Because there's always going to be someone offended by something. There's always going to be someone hurt by something. There's always going to be someone that gets upset about something. So instead of monitoring all of that and limiting all of that, the healthier route is to do the internal work on ourselves to not be offended or affected by what other people say. Because all you're going to do the opposite way, which is what we're already seeing, is kids throwing tantrums because they're not getting their way. Kids, being canceled and stuff because of something they said at some point. Grown people being canceled and losing their livelihoods because of something they said 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago. it was a very different culture. I mean, we can even look at the movies and the types of
Right.
movies that were coming out. Actually, Vince Vaughn just did a phenomenal episode of a online show called Hot Ones, and he was talking about the movie industry and how
Mhm.
nowadays everyone is so focused on not getting fired that they don't want to take any risks. And what that translates to is they don't want to offend anyone, they don't want to put anything too risque, they want to be very safe in what they put out, because we have cultivated an environment where it's very much about the other person and not about
Mhm.
them regulating themselves. So now
Yeah.
instead of me focusing on just regulating myself and living my life and doing my best, I now have to focus on how can I not offend anybody, which is impossible. It's literally impossible.
And it's also not our responsibility how someone
Right.
else takes what we say. And
Right.
that's the part that I think everyone forgets.
Mhm.
We're not responsible for how our message lands on someone else. You
Right.
and I are having a very honest and open conversation. If somebody takes offense to it, then they need to check themselves
Mhm.
and ask, get curious, not judgmental, but curious of why is this bothering me so
Right.
much? Why is this bothering me so much? And you're going to be amazed at what you hear and what you learn about yourself when you start getting curious,
Right.
not judgmental, not over analyzing, not overthinking, but just, huh, that is interesting. Why did that trigger me? Why did that bug me?
Right.
And so, we're we're both under 5 feet. And when I was a kid, I would have, and they may be watching, there were people that would come up to me in school and they would like literally lean on my head. Like, haha, isn't this funny? Michelle's such a great, like, post or, a table or whatever. And I used to laugh, like, kind of like, laugh it off. And then my hair started getting spikier because I was like, they better not mess up my hair. Maybe that'll prevent them because my hair is so straight and sticky with hairspray. And it did kind of work. Um, but I didn't, it wasn't something like I carried around with me. Like, I think my nickname was like Shorty or, Little One. There were some not very nice ones too. But I don't feel like it bogged me down to the point where I didn't like them or I was mad at them or I felt less of myself.
Mhm.
It was like, "Okay, yeah, I'm short. Big freaking deal. Like,
Yeah.
could you not mess up my hair?
Yeah.
Like, could you not?"
That's great. I love that.
It took me, like, 30 minutes to get my hair standing straight
Yeah.
up, so I'd have, like, an extra inch and a half, Like, could you not mess up my hair? Um, and it's very different in today's world.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I can remember being in public high school before I left to do the college program that I did. There were kids that, I mean, we know the classic story of I'd be walking through the hall and they'd start singing Oompa Loompa songs, or, there were people that even said stuff to my face that I didn't even know who they were. And I think our stories are a little bit different because it sounds like those people you at least knew. The people that
Mhm.
would, say things to me were people I didn't even know who they were. But at the same time, I didn't really take it to heart either. Now, that's probably because I have a family comprised of ball busters. And so that's just par for the course. Like, that's just you. When you grow up with that, it's just
Right.
kind of you learn to have things roll off your back, which is an absolute blessing for sure. Um, and I think there's people, though, that really take to heart what other people comment about them. And what's interesting to me is when you actually look at bullying situations,
Mhm.
all those people are looking for is to get a rise out of you. That's literally the aim. If there is no emotional reaction, it's not fun for them anymore. And not
Yep.
to say that they should go target someone else, but that they find something else to do,
Yeah.
because they're not getting the reaction, the rise, they're not getting the satisfaction out of bothering you. And so that's why I think it's so incredibly ironic, the societal temperature that we're in right now, because the reaction by those who are expecting everyone to change for them, they throw the
Mhm.
temper tantrums that like a bully would if you're not if you're not giving them the satisfaction of a reaction. So I think it's really interesting because so many of these people that act that way
Right.
are just inherently being what they do, what they're trying to fight against. So I think it's very very ironic and kind of humorous.
And one of the notes I wrote down before we got started was just that, like the narcissists, the bullies, they hate losing control of people, situations, and causing reactions. And what is so amazing to me is that talking with the kid part, and really even in an organization of where there's rampant bullying,
Mhm.
when you see it happening, there's people that just sit by and do freaking nothing. And I get that it's not your responsibility to fight other people's battles, but in that situation, you know, I would probably say something smart assy back. Uh, just because, like, oh, well, you may not be sure, but I saw you got an F yesterday, or like I would have to say something back. But is
But
that
here's
a reaction?
well, and
It's
here's
a
the funny thing.
reaction, and it's giving them the attention that they want.
Not only that, but now the likelihood is you're now going to get in trouble because you brought up their grade,
Right.
which means now that you're the bully. But that's how convoluted this has become. It's so funny
Mm-hmm.
because I say I'll say so often, but not it's not often. But I'll think back to like high school and middle school and things like that because middle school it was really bad for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
more of just like the classic girlhood mind games and that like betrayal and all of that kind of stuff, which I guess is a form of bullying. But it's so funny because I look back to all of that, I think back, and I just think of how differently I would have handled so many things if I were in that situation today. If
Yeah.
someone behaved that way with today's version of me, it would have been a very very different experience for both of us because nowadays I would just my initial reaction would be like, did that make you feel good? Did, did that
Right.
make your day? Okay, great. I'm glad I could be the whipping post for you. Have a great day. Like, okay,
Right.
moving
Right.
on. But think of all the work. I mean, and I'm sure you'd be the same way. Think of all the work that we've done internally for ourselves. The kids have never been taught. Never once in school did we ever learn about meditation, regulating our emotions, any of that. We learned about history that's not even accurate because it's not actual correct history. We learned things
Right.
that weren't even world accurate instead of learning about ways to regulate our own emotions. And so how can we set kids up to be able to do that?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a course. It doesn't have to even be, something that they go to. It can just be having the conversation of what those techniques and strategies look like versus
Hmm.
them just constantly looking at reels and tic tacs all day about nothing.
Right, right. I was trying to put Renee's comment up, but for some reason that option isn't there for me. But Renee said, we have a block of time every morning for social emotional learning from K to 12th grade. Like that's amazing. Like I can't even imagine the the change that that's going to make in the kids as they're growing up.
I'm,
Um, and lessons in self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and that, I mean, that's huge, and that's going to change so many lives, not just those kids but everyone that they interact with.
and they've
And
done studies with kids, and I think they've even done it with like people in prison where they've introduced even just basic mindfulness like meditation
Mhm.
and the impact that it has in years to come and the results from that are just absolutely ridiculously positive.
Yeah, yeah. I would be curious, and Renee, maybe you can give us this answer. I know that some of those kids you've seen grow up from, kindergarten, first grade, into their older ages. have you seen a change in the outcome of these kids
Mm,
and what they go on to do in the world? Because when we start changing those kids, even our own energy, the way we respond, we're changing the people around us, and then they're changing the people around them. That's what's going to change the world, everyone. That is what's going to do it.
you know what kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of, when, so let's say a toddler or even younger maybe falls and they start crying. And if you like, oh, you poor little baby, oh my god, da, da, they cry more and they put on this more of a production. But if you go, oh, darn, all right, well, just, wipe your knee off, get back to it, boop, tears dry up, they go off and they play. It's very much, to me, seems to be a very similar type of thing,
Yeah.
with the way that we're handling, being triggered by other people. And so if you feed into that, oh my gosh, you poor thing, they shouldn't have said that to you. Like, you're just fostering more of that to be attracted to them. Because really, that just goes down to even just the law of attraction.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're focusing on the behavior that you don't want from a person.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, we have to put the focus on what we want. And that would be the kids that are opening the door for the other kid or picking another kid up, when they fall down and helping them. Or, um, I don't even know if hugging is allowed in school anymore. Um, I'm glad to see Renee's going against the grain. Did you want to put that out on here? Meditation and crystals in our classroom. Listen, I mean, again, creating an environment where there's open mindedness. Oh my goodness. And we're bringing in things and exposing them to different options that might work for them. I know one of my friends, your aunt, would bring in aromatherapy. She started that years ago and she did her own, kind of study
Mm-hmm.
and saw that it made a huge, huge difference in the
Yeah.
kids that were acting up the most and the autistic kids. Um, and I mean, she saw it firsthand. She
Mm-hmm.
saw it firsthand
Absolutely.
to the point where the parents were asking her, "What are you doing to get him to focus, or what are you doing to get them to be different?" Yes, I would. I want to go to Renee's classroom.
It sounds pretty cool, Renee. I love to hear what you're doing. Um, and,
And
I
hello.
think so much of this comes from having a solid base of self esteem that I
Mhm.
think is also another branch of this that kids are not taught, which really comes from mindfulness in a lot of ways. Because if you are very sure of yourself and content with yourself, anything that anyone else says, it literally rolls off your back. You don't take any heed to it because you know your truth. And so, what's interesting is I think so many of the things that you do with your clients, if people could do with their kids, would be unbelievable. To even do with them, for them to do it would be
Yeah.
unbelievable. But to start that with kids would be outstanding.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be meditation. It can be, I mean, we used to do a moment of silence,
Hmm.
and do whatever you want during your silence. If you're going to pray, pray. If you're going to meditate, meditate. If you're going to, sing your favorite song to yourself, good, do it. Or rubber, I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever it takes. But giving kids different options that they can use, different tools and techniques that they can use. And I love what Renee said. Then they go home and they teach their parents. I think that's awesome.
Hmm.
Um, and just imagine if there's this flow, back and forth of who's teaching what to who, as long as we're rising up, as long as we're keeping our energy up and our energy high, and we're not reacting but responding to situations. Can you imagine a kid that sits back and instead of reacting to somebody teasing them, just like kind of counts to five before they respond or react and then decides they're just going to walk away because it doesn't matter? Like,
Yeah,
that's huge. That's
that.
huge.
I mean, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And unfortunately, a lot of times it seems like the reason bullying situations escalate is because, like we mentioned before, things are not, schools don't take accountability for handling those situations. I know they certainly did not with me. We even went to the school and they did not a damn thing, which
Right.
is fine. It worked out. I'm fine now. Whatever. It was what it was. But I got lucky in that it did not get to a point where there was no like physical bullying, which lucky for me, I was a girl, or I am a girl, so that wasn't
Yeah.
anything that was at risk to me. But there's so many with like physical bullying situations that may be a different, a whole all around type of different thing. But because schools don't interject and they don't stop the bully, that's when we have these situations where kids go, well, school's not going to do anything. I'm going to freaking beat this kid's ass right back. And then the
Right.
bully gets their ass kicked, and then it's like, well, your kid beat them up. Okay, well, they've been being bullied for 6 months, and you've done nothing. So what did you
Right.
want to do? That's a
Yeah.
whole other.
Well, and that reminds me of the one friend of yours that did stick up for you after he found out why you left,
Mhm.
and he got suspended. Not the bully, but he got suspended.
Yeah.
And it's interesting the way you phrase that, because it's um I don't remember the exact words you just used about the bully, but my thought is, can we help a bully? Can we help the bully take radical responsibility for their feelings and have them understand why it's wrong, and change the bully into.
Here's the thing. Bullies become bullies for a few reasons. One is they've seen it before, which means it's happening in
Mhm,
their household. So there needs to be a check-in on, are they getting physical or emotional abuse? Is that happening in their home? That's number one.
mhm,
Number two, are they getting their basic needs met? Do they have a roof over their head? Are they getting fed
right,
proper meals? I know when I'm hungry, I turn into an absolute jerk, and that's saying it nicely. So imagine a child who doesn't know how to manage this and does not have any options. What are they going to do? They're going to lash out. Or they're not getting their emotional needs met. Their parents maybe are absent,
mhm,
whether they're working a lot because they have to in order to
right,
provide their basic physical needs. But what's happening with their emotional needs? But bullies don't just become bullies for no reason. There are underlying reasons. And so
right.
that's a whole other part of it of, if the only thing that's happening is a bully is being stuck in internal suspension or getting suspended,
That's
that's
not
only
helping
going
them.
to make the problem worse.
Right.
Why is the bullying happening? What is this kid lacking that they're not, what need is not being fulfilled here? That's the real question to ask in these circumstances. And honestly, the same thing could be said for those that are being bullied themselves. What needs are not being met? They don't have the internal fortitude to be able to handle these situations. What
Right.
emotional needs, physical needs aren't being met? How is their home life? Are they, those kids may also
Mhm,
be being emotionally or physically abused at home because they
mhm,
they don't have typically a very solid, strong inner fortitude if it's really weighing on them, not
right.
necessarily just them being bullied, but if it's really really taking a toll on them, what is causing that emotional turmoil to take such a hold on them? For you
Right.
and I, for the most part, we were able to brush it off to a certain extent because we had stronger foundations to be able to prop us up. But those that don't have that, which unfortunately is even more prevalent right now because of the economy, parents have to take double jobs and
Mhm,
jobs, whatever it is, that's going to happen. And so it's really looking past what's happening and what is the actual underlying causes of this. It's
right.
it's like Western medicine. We're not fixing the underlying cause. We're just throwing medications to fix the symptoms.
Right.
Bullying and being bullied, we could honestly look at as symptoms.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also something that's going to follow them
Hmm.
into their adulthood and become a pattern.
Hmm.
Uh, my pattern was attracting narcissists,
Hmm.
and I had to go through learning how to manage and deal with my feelings
Hmm.
and the narcissist throwing shit at me, and how to. And I remember I was in therapy one time before I left corporate, and I remember the therapist said, well, just put on thicker armor. And I was like, well, that was a jerky thing to say. But now when I think about it, what I think she was really meaning was, why are you allowing it to affect you? It's about that person, it's not about you.
Mhm.
And honestly, that's why I do the coaching, the type of coaching that I do, because in corporate, it was always like, oh, emotional intelligence, and let's learn about everybody else.
Mhm.
But nobody stopped to say, but let's learn about the
Mhm.
person inside and how you're how you're reacting to the bullying or the toxicity or what have you.
Yeah. Renee, you
Renee,
bring up a phenomenal point. 100%. The system, I don't think anyone could disagree that the system is broken. I mean,
yeah,
it truly, okay, it maybe not, we don't want to use the word broken, dilapidated. I mean, it's not, the public school
dysfunctional.
is completely dysfunctional. And for that exact reason, the resources are very limited in a lot of places, especially if you're sort of, as you said, inner city, lower income areas. Those are even
Mhm.
worse. And those are the kids who need the most help a lot of times because they don't have a lot of that support that maybe those of more advantageous circumstances have the support and the resources.
And because of people like Raymond teaching his kids about meditation, and Renee, who is impacting not just a kid, but a classroom of kids every single year who then affect other kids, and then it just, and their parents, and it trickles up and down. More angels like this, and yes, I'm calling you guys angels, more angels like this is what's going to make the difference, because yeah, the districts are afraid of lawsuits, and but these little itty bitty things that you're implanting
Mhm.
are huge.
Yeah.
They may seem, like, oh, my favorite videos, where the teacher's like, give me a high five, a hug, or a dap or whatever, every morning. Like, those, I love watching those videos.
Yeah.
Because one, it shows that you're honoring the person's choices, and you're also just showing this just lovely compassion and teaching kids that there are adults that care.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's so good.
So, what do you think would be some of the most useful, we'll call them basic techniques, that parents could be teaching their kids to help them just start working on their emotional strength?
Yeah. Well, I think kids and adults alike. So some of the techniques are having compassion, not excusing for the person, but getting curious as to why they might be feeling that way, right? Just
I was
like,
going to say this would be looking at alternative perspectives, seeing things from different angles.
exactly. Like, somebody cut, and I'm just using this as an excuse, but someone cuts you off in while you're driving, and honestly, it could be because they're trying to get somewhere because their wife's having a baby or someone's dying or something. Like, you don't know. And so you're prejudging, like, you're just prejudging. Or like you said, maybe the person's hungry. Maybe they had a crappy morning, or their father was in a pissy mood and took it out on them before they left for school. So, not excusing the behavior, but just having an understanding that it's not about you. They're lashing out at you, but it's not about you. And whatever they're saying isn't it's not true.
Mhm.
And knowing that it's not true,
Yeah.
and of course you used your favorite line, my favorite line, which I know my truth. And teaching kids that, like, what is their truth?
Yeah.
What is their truth?
And I think what goes along really well with this, and actually it came up in a reading I had with a friend of ours a couple of weeks ago, is what meditation, for example, can help with is helping someone understand what their energy is versus the energy outside of them, meaning either the world's energy or somebody else's energy. And so that can really become helpful in these situations where you said it has nothing to do with us. Anything anyone does has nothing to do with us, truly. But
Mhm.
what in those moments, what you can do, because you've been practicing meditation, even if it's for 5 minutes a day, but you can more easily, if you're doing it regularly, more easily pull up that place of this is my isolated energy and return to what you know as who you are, letting
Right.
all of that external baggage fall away more easily. And so that's where meditation can really, really be beneficial, especially for kids, because it helps them understand and separate this is who I am, this is my energy, this is what I feel like,
Right.
versus this is what, when my mom's in a bad mood and she snaps at me, that's what that feels like. If the kid at school says something nasty to me or pushes me out of the way, that's what that feels like. But this is who I am. And you can
Right.
return to that place a lot quicker and more easily.
Well, and that's what I call, well, I teach my clients, it's premeditation. So you're meditating early in your day to get yourself in this right space, right? This space that feels good to you. It's a higher energy. And then that way, if someone does say something that upsets you, you don't fall as deep as you would if you didn't take that time to premeditate.
Yeah.
And your days aren't going to be perfect, but is the whole day ruined because of one moment? And
Right.
that's another thing to teach the kids. Just because there's one moment, maybe you thought you were going to get an A and you got a C or a D. You
Yeah.
don't have to let that ruin your whole entire day. Make an action plan on how you're going to fix it, and and do better. Choose better. Choose wisely. You those are moments. It doesn't have to ruin your whole day.
Right.
Doesn't have to absorb everything. And so I think that that's a big thing too. And like you said, if the parent went off on them in the morning, I mean, I used to, when you kids were younger, and it was like the morning was like a sanctuary. Like, don't upset them before they go to school.
Hmm.
Like, let's not talk about anything major. We're going to just keep everything happy. We're just going to get them. Let's focus on the moment and get them to school in a good place. Like, that was my big thing, because I didn't want you to carry that baggage with you to school.
Right.
So, Renee, I have to know, what is please your words? Five, be present and observant. Yeah. Create a supportive atmosphere, share life experiences, stimulate discussion, and I think that that's so important. Had anyone ask a bully? Has anyone ever said to a bully, like, what made you say that? Like, I just wonder, like, it would just be interesting, right? To get curious with a bully. Maybe not in front of everybody, but like take them aside. Like, what were you thinking? What was going on there? What are the emotions that are coming up for you? Oh, please use your words.
Use your words. Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. That makes more sense.
Okay. I was like, what? Yeah, words are important, and that's the other thing that I take the clients through, is also using the right words. We don't worry. I said that about even our topic today. Stop worrying about yeah, drop worrying. It's not your responsibility to worry about anybody.
Hmm.
Can you send them love? Can you want them to feel better? Do you hope them well? Do you have faith that they'll overcome? But when you bring the word worrying into it, now it's almost like, one, you're taking responsibility for something that they're going through, but you're also putting this negative connotation, because worry is such a heavy and hard word.
Yeah.
I'm worried about this, or I'm worried about that. I am looking forward to. I am hopeful that. I think those are the more important uh, vocabulary to learn, not just, teaching our kids practical, logical, and feasible and discombobulated, but actually what are positive words and what are negative words?
Hmm.
And how can you use more positive language?
Yeah. It's funny. I think too of there's a great scene in the movie The Help with Viola Davis. Viola Davis, I think is her name.
Hmm.
And there's a little girl that she's taking care of, and every morning they stand in, or I think she looks at her and says like, "I am smart. I am beautiful. I am powerful." And that's another really, really impactful way to help kids as
Hmm.
well as get started on that affirmation journey early. Because again, a lot of this that does also stem from self-esteem. And if you have a strong self-esteem, what anyone says to you is irrelevant. You know who you are. You're very very firm on and know who you are. So anyone else's opinion doesn't matter to you. And so if you can get in the habit early of simple things like she did in the movie, very simple. I am strong. I am powerful. I am beautiful. I am handsome. If it's a young man, I am creative. I am all of these things. Oh, I love it. Perfect, Renee. But yeah, getting into that affirmation habit, that's your default. That becomes your default because if you say an affirmation enough, you do believe it.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
psyche believes it. Um, yeah.
I want to know how we can get Renee's curriculum out there to everybody. Like seriously, Renee, you need to go on tour. We should have you on and just you can talk and we should just like really push it out to teachers and give them some ideas on things that they can implement in school. Like how people have swear jars.
Hmm.
Imagine if there was like a almost like a good deed jar and you put money in it for every time that you did something good and then you got to have a pizza party or
I'm sure someone has that, and I'm sure
I would I
some
would
people are
sit.
doing it. And there's another part of this too that I was just thinking of that I think would be good to address, and that is, you know, through this conversation, we've talked about not being affected by what other people say, and that we shouldn't be we shouldn't be as worried on not offending other people. That doesn't mean to use hate speech or things like that. But
Right.
if you're somebody who feels like you can't just voice your through basic communication because you're worried that it's going to be taken the wrong way, I've been there. I can have a more abrupt um, and direct delivery on things. And that is not something everybody enjoys. That's not something everybody likes. And so for a lot of years, I just didn't really want to say much at all because
Mhm.
I knew that other people were not going to take it the right way. And so if that is something that you deal with, the best thing that I can say to you is get some coaching around your own emotional fortitude, just because it's not your concern how other people take you. It really isn't. And by limiting yourself, it limits your ability to find the people who do need what you have to offer. And so if you are someone who speaks more directly, or maybe you don't speak perfectly politically correct or use the exact right words, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing to fix. We live in a very weird world, and that's not your responsibility to fix
Mhm.
either.
Yeah.
Again, that's not saying to use hate speech or be out of your way, rude or nasty to somebody, but just like people cannot be so sensitive, we also cannot be so sensitive. It goes
Right.
both ways. Everybody
Whew.
all around across the board can stop being so sensitive by building their emotional resilience, their emotional fortitude, and by
Mhm.
taking care of their own internal world.
Well, and I think that also goes back to some other old phrases that we used to teach kids, which was if you have nothing nice to say, then don't say anything at all. Not because you shouldn't speak up. If you need to speak up, then you should speak up,
Mhm.
but you don't have to do it in a hateful way because now you're switching over to the bully side, right? But if you have something to contribute that's of value,
Yeah.
then find a way to say it, not because you want to accommodate the other person's fear or issues, but because you want your message to be absorbed or heard and received. And so that's another thing. Like, if you have something to say, sometimes you have to think about what is the best way I can deliver this so that the other person is going to actually hear me versus they're going to shut down. So if
I
you know,
I agree and disagree with you.
and I figured that we would have an agree disagree moment
Mhm.
on that one because yes, I've been told by people you need to treat me a certain way, or when you do this, I need this from you afterwards, and that pisses me off. On the other hand, I also know that if you're hungry and grumpy, now's not the time to talk to you about something like major. You know what I mean? So,
The way that I like to look at it is if you can plan it out a little bit and you feel comfortable having a little, shifting the way that you deliver it, fine, no problem. Shift it to fit the other person if you know that it's going to be more constructive that way. But if you're not going to say something because you don't know the right way to do it, or you don't know the perfect way to say it, or whatever it is
mhm,
that holds you back, that's where it becomes a problem. Because if you're so worried about how do I deliver this where the other person's going to receive it, you're probably walking on eggshells with that person, and it's just not good to begin with. And
well,
that's something that you also have to learn and develop, is learning how to figure that out for people. And usually it's the people that like are most important to you. So that might look like a spouse, a parent, a sibling, a boss, a coworker, something like that. Like someone that has importance to you. Otherwise,
mhm.
what does it matter? You're never going to see that person again. Say what you need to say. But if it's between you saying something that you need to say or not, just say it. Just get it out, because otherwise it's going to do more damage. That's the way I look at it.
Yes, yes. And there's also that other part of, would you rather be happy or right?
100%.
So if there's a situation that it's not going to matter what you say, like we both know
Yeah.
certain people, you can say something 1,000 times, you're not going to change their mind, you're not going to change their belief, you're not going to change the way they think, and so we just move on to a different topic.
Yeah.
And because it's just easier for everybody involved. If you're in a relationship or a situation and you're trying to change somebody, it's not going to work. You can't go into a relationship with, you know what, 9 out of 10 things are great about them, but I'm going to change that one other thing and then they're going to be perfect. Like you can't do that. They have to decide that they want to change for themselves if they feel they even need to.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you have to love and accept them for who they are, which can also be very challenging.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's going to be narcissists that are going to be narcissists. And now, if they acknowledge they're a narcissist, are they still a narcissist? I think so. But I think that then they get to decide how they're going to
A true
their own
narcissist is
technique.
not, no, a true narcissist is not possible of changing. They can be aware of it, but it doesn't change because
Well,
narcissism is
that's what I
a
meant.
true
That they're aware.
psychological disturbance. So,
Right.
narcissism gets thrown around a lot these days. Um,
Hmm.
and it's usually not accurate, because true narcissism is a psychological disturbance that's very disturbing.
Yeah. But I like what you said. If they're aware of it and they decide they want to use some techniques, count to five before they say something. Um,
But that's the point, is a true narcissist is not going to do anything about it.
yeah.
They're aware that they have the issue, but they're not really capable of making those changes. So they just are who they are, and either you like it or you don't, because they're not capable of changing. And if they are, then they're not a true psychological narcissist.
I'm a hopeful, optimistic person. So I never like to give up on anybody. I always think that there's going, but what they put out there is, law of the universe, right? There's universal laws. What you put out is what you're going to get back. And they can make that decision on if they're going to reach out for help. How's that? Is that better? I like
We'll
that
leave
better.
it at that. So the bottom line of what we're saying today is, A, stop being so dang sensitive, number one.
Yeah.
And two, if you are and that's something you're struggling with, then it's time to work on your emotional fortitude. And if your kids are struggling with that, then it's time to help them with their emotional fortitude. And it does not mean, you know, to find some weird somebody to help them take care of it. It just means basic mindfulness techniques usually. Like it doesn't have to be this complicated, convoluted, they need to be in massive therapy for the rest of their life. Like sometimes all it takes is just a solid foundation. And that's that's where you start, and then you can go
Yeah.
from there. And stop worrying about everybody else. Focus on yourself. How anyone else takes something is on them, in the same way that how you take things is on you.
Yeah.
It's all
And
your radical responsibility.
one last thing, a couple last things, but one one specific is if you are in a bad pissy mood and you are just not feeling it today, you can say, I need a break. Like I need some time. Like I don't want to talk today. Or I don't want you to try to fix anything today. And parents, teachers, students, go read freaking Winnie the Pooh. I mean, because every single personality is represented and they all interact and we can learn a lot. What was that about the Tao
The
of
Tao.
Pooh? You know, there
Very
are these amazing, wonderful books that are out there that are kids' books, but we can learn so much from. Go read the Sarah books if you want to learn more about, the laws of the universe and law of attraction. I mean, there's so much out there. Um, do some of the digging for yourself, radical responsibility, and then teach the younger generation if you have kids in your life. Be more, be like Renee and inspire, classroom change and take some things into the classroom. Be a parent like Raymond and so many others that are teaching their kids about meditation and, how to be mindful of and observant of what's going on around you, like situational awareness. And if you do need help, that's what coaches are for. It doesn't have to be therapy. It is coaching and it's learning and, reach out, book a freaking call and let's talk if you need some
so
help.
funny. There's I'm sure most people have heard of BetterHelp, which is like online therapy. It's so funny because there is a ad that they have out where the girl is going, I've been in therapy since I was 6 years old. And she's like probably in her 20s or 30s. And it's just so humorous to me because if you've been in therapy that long and you still feel a deep need for therapy, personally, my humble opinion, probably controversial, but if you've been in therapy since you were 6 years old and you're in your 30s and still feel a deep need to it, you might be emotionally attached to it, and maybe that's something to look at.
Might be some kind of trauma bond going on, and hopefully it's not the same therapist, but you may want to try something different.
Yeah.
And that's that old saying, if you keep doing what you've always done and you expect different results, you're that's the definition of insanity.
Yes. So, Michelle, where can they find you?
mokshagrace.com. And if you want to continue a conversation like this, conversations weekly like this, go on over to Odonata Community and Moksha Grace Community and join the Odonata Community.
mokshagrace.com/community.
You're so good. You're so wonderful, keeping me so straight and in line. Yes, mokshagrace.com/community. And we meet weekly and we talk about what the topic is for the night. And it can be different depending on who shows up, which night, and what the conversation is, what's the one at hand. So, yeah, that you can try out some coaching.
I love
And
that.
Krista, how can people find you?
You can find me at wickedwisdomconsulting.com, which is right above, right there. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and stuff like that. But really, bottom line is if you are a small business owner, a coach, a solopreneur, entrepreneur, reach out if you need help with anything related to business operations. Maybe something's not running right. Maybe something's not working right. Maybe you are just stressed out and have too much on your plate and you need someone that can take that from you. That is a much higher level than just hiring a inexpensive VA who is really just supposed to be checking off tasks, checking your email, checking your calendar. What I do is help you run your business. So if that sounds like something you need and want, not just need, but also want, reach out at wickedwisdomconsulting.com. I have a free consult on there that you can book your call. And even if we're not a fit, I have a lot of connections, so I can point you in a direction of someone that would be a better fit. Literally happened just yesterday. So book your call. Let me see how I can help you, and we'll go from there.
Excellent. Well, it is always a pleasure, and I will definitely look forward to next week's conversation. And also, tomorrow is Moment of Presence,
Ooh,
and we have another amazing conversation to have. And I look forward, and thank you all for joining us, and Renee and Raymond for sharing some ideas and giving us some things to think about. So, appreciate you all, and we will see you next.